This is your moment. This is your time. Embrace every milestone. No looking behind. What's your vantage point?
Child, I didn't know what I didn't know. And what I didn't know was about this privatization of these prisons, honey. I will admit I was ignorant to the fact. Welcome back to Ladies of Vantage Point. We are going to try and help you out if you are in my situation. I'm Lori.
And I'm Natalie.
I'm Serge.
And I'm Alexa.
Now I'm going to keep it 100. When we were talking about this topic, I was like, child, I'll be sitting there. I was over there. But let me just research a little bit and learn a little something. Yo, this is crazy.
It is awful.
Privatization of prisons. This is horrible. So we're just going to go and get into some facts. You know, people say they want to be entrepreneurs when you grow up. You might want to grow up and own a prison because that seemed to be where the money is.
Well,
the two largest companies that I looked at, y'all looking like, Laura, you know something? Yes, I did some research. Honey, don't try and play me. So Core Civic and Geo Group, those are the largest private owners of prisons. $1 billion, $2 billion. There's a quote that I like to reference all the time. It says, millionaires provide the service that people want. Billionaires provide the service that people need.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do we really need these prisons? So let's get into this. I'm really excited to hear what y'all have to say.
Well, to your point, it's supposed to be one of those things that's supposed to help the government as far as funding. Well, research has shown that it's not entirely so. Well, the whole private prisons came about really when during Reagan administration, war on drugs. You remember back in the day, 1980. And because of the Reagan administration, their policies were harsh as far as incarceration, and therefore inmate population skyrocketed. So we had nowhere to put these inmates. So now they're knocking to those specific corporations and say, hey, we need assistance. And that's how that came about. But here's the thing. The issue with the private prisons is the fact that they cut corners in every which way. The employees are paid less, actually an average $5,000 less than their counterparts in the government. Training, 58 hours less in training, okay? And hiring is less. So with when I mentioned these three things, right? Actually four. Think about it this way. So if I'm not paying you and I know your friend down in the government is getting paid more money, what do you think is going to happen as far as turnover?
High turnover.
Okay, so now it's a domino effect. Turnover is high, so we don't have enough security guards. So you have more inmate on inmate assault, more inmate on staff assault, and let's not talk about medical.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's atrocious. I think to your point, you know, it was created to fix a problem. There was a need. Prisons were overcrowded because of the war on drugs, right? And so I look at it no different from the boom of the storage units industry. We need a place to store people, and the storage industry exploded because we evolved into like a culture of hoarding. And so now we're hoarding people, and we're not even getting into marginalized communities yet, but we do need to put them in a box somewhere. So now we have a privatization of prisons. So it started out as a need, but it's big.
Yeah, to me, there's two things here. Actually, you just made me think about something. When you're talking about storing people, you're not talking about rehabilitating people. And prisons were supposed to be a rehabilitation effort. Right. They're still doing it to a degree in younger prisons, but when it comes to adult populations, that is out of the window when it comes to privatization. Right. So if you're not trying to rehabilitate someone, if you don't care about what happens to them when they get back out on the streets, all basically you're doing is you're using them. Right. And that is slave labor. To me, it's slave labor all over the place. Because you are basically taking people, they get paid very, very little. They're literally captive, and you are making money off of their backs. It's horrible.
Yeah, this is crazy.
Even in the political realm, because there's gerrymandering and people are manipulating districts in terms of voting practices.
You want to define gerrymandering? Not that I don't know what it is or anything, but somebody out there might not know what gerrymandering is.
Well, it's literally just that, when people are manipulating different districts and it's for political gain. So for instance, the prisoners, let's say that you are originally from Washington, D.C., but let's say you're going to be taken to a prison in Virginia. You're not counted as a person in D.C., you're counted as a person in Virginia. So that's going to boost the Senate race for whoever's running for office in Virginia. Those numbers of population is going to go to that person's account. That's going to be their constituency. The problem with that is that what happens to a judge? He gets to decide where this person is going to go. That person has no rights. They're incarcerated. They get sent on purpose to Virginia to boost that person's constituency.
And there's probably kickbacks.
And there's
I remember
kickbacks
there was
to
those
it.
2 judges in Pennsylvania that were getting kickbacks from private prisons to send juveniles to juvenile delinquent centers. We ought to get pissed off about this.
This is crazy.
This is destroying
This
families.
is completely crazy. I mean, the fact, when I was looking into it, I was like, okay, well, I don't understand how they're making this money.
Right.
And the way that they're making the money, you're charging people for phone calls, for transportation, for food, like that.
For medical care, too.
For medical care.
Well,
and if
they're providing medical care.
Yeah.
Right. I think, I don't know what it costs. Let's say it costs, I spoke with a woman who was recently, not recently, but she was incarcerated, and she's very candid about her experience. And we talked about healthcare, because I'm really into healthcare disparity. And she says, we have to pay to get seen by someone. I said, well, how much does it cost? She says, $2. I said, whoa, that's it? She says, we make 22 cents an hour. 22 cents an hour. So I said, what if it's getting worse? She says, it just gets worse. And then, we barter and we do different things to try to get money just to go see a medic in prison. And I think that's the distinction between private and government-run prisons is that, there's the regulation and reporting. It's different. So it's no different from private industry and maybe grant-funded programs. It
happens in medical. It happens in their food. Like the quality of the food and what they're taking. I think there was a program, there was something in Michigan, and they were talking about how when they opened up the inmates' food packages and everything that they're eating, there was like rank, spoiled food that they're having, because why are you going to invest in anything that's of quality? I'm not talking filet mignon. Of course, this is prison. But there is some base level, because these are human beings. There's a base level in terms of what they're supposed to get. And you fall way under because there's no regulation. If it's a private company, I can do whatever I want.
I know there has to be people out there like me who I honestly was ignorant. I honestly did not understand. I mean, I've heard the buzz of private versus... I'm thinking that they're all the same, not understanding the full idea that there are people making millions, billions of dollars on these people. And what really trips me out is some people aren't guilty. You've got a lot of people who just can't make bail. And so now, because I can't make bail, which the whole bail system is a whole nother conversation in and of itself, but now I can't make bail. So now I'm stuck in this prison and I'm dealing with these conditions. And I mean, this thing was just so enlightening to me. The fact that violent crimes are decreasing, but the prison population is increasing.
It's nutty.
Yes.
So crazy.
Where
And the
come at?
crazy thing about that, Lori, is in 2006 or 16, I forget, but during the Obama administration, he actually,
Pardon.
not only just pardon, but he was looking to
Cut ties.
And I want to say General Attorney Jeff Sessions overturned that a year later.
Well, it was
You know
when our
why?
new administration came in.
There you go.
Our new administration, who not only, let me get this right, he is benefiting because Core Civic contributes to his election fund.
There you go.
And so now, in order for me to have a business, I have to have customers, or I have to have some clients or prisoners to be able to imprison. So now we need harsher sentencing to be able to keep these people in jail longer. And not only that, if you're in a private prison, you are less likely to receive your parole.
Yes,
Exactly.
that's exactly right.
It's like sales.
Inhumane.
It's like sales in the justice system. This is no different than having a business team and saying you have a sales quota to meet. You know?
You're right.
And then even just the word justice. I think we talked about this before. I heard an actor say that our justice system was named incorrectly. It is not a judicial system. No different than corrections. It is not a correcting system.
It's not.
It's just deeply flawed. It's a business system designed to make the wealthy wealthier.
And the sad part to me is that in all of this, we're forgetting that we're dealing with people.
Yes.
You know, we are dealing with people because these people sooner or later are going to be released back on the streets. And it would behoove all of us, the benefit to society is that they're better. The benefit to society is that they're rehabilitated in some way. So if you're going to treat them in an animalistic way, you're just making their downfall even greater. So now you're releasing that person back out on the streets. What do you think is going to happen?
Exactly.
I mean, of course, recidivism rates are really, really high. So those are people who are coming right back in Delaware, I think it's 76% in 3 years are coming back into prisons.
Wow.
But the problem is that you have not done anything for that person.
Right.
I mean, where's
they're
the
set
dignity?
up to fail.
Yeah.
They're set up to fail. When I get out and I write down that I have a record, now I've already cut down on my success rate, so to speak, because there are some people who come out and do the thing and really make it successful. But as soon as I write that down, so now you want me to go to these low wage paying jobs or I'm not acquiring a skill?
Yeah.
It's a cycle.
Heard, a woman say, the same woman I interviewed, she said the incarceration experience strips you of your dignity.
Wow.
And she actually wrote a book. It's called I Am, and it was a picture of her mugshot, and then I Was, which is who she is today. And I have to shout her out. Her name was Allison Moore Garrett, and she's very candid about her experience. But she shared stories about things like sanitary napkins and what that's like and how it's rationed out and how you are sort of made fun of by guards. And it's just bad. It's just bad altogether. But she says it truly, truly strips you of your dignity day by day, experience after experience. And we'll get into how she overcame that. But to your point, when she was released, all of these things, these barriers that were in place, she says, I was placed in a halfway house in the middle of where everything that you shouldn't be around, you're there. And being a contributor in that house, you have to provide food. So now I have to apply for food stamps, but I can't because I don't have an ID and I don't have a birth certificate and all these other things that you need to get support. And so the cycle just deteriorates. And so she fortunately had some family to help her, and she has this stick-to-itness that's exceptional. But everybody doesn't have that. But when she said that the prison experience strips you of your dignity day by day by day, she's seen people wither down to nothing.
Yeah.
It is absolutely crazy.
Someone mentioned when you see someone walking down Route 13 and they've just got out of jail, and if you see, especially a young woman, and she's got like a black bag with her, you can tell she was just released. A lot of times, to your point, when people are released, in Nebraska it's called gap money. So you might have like $100. Some places are more like $200. What is $200?
Sure.
Because with that $200, you need to get housing, you need to get food, you need to get a job. In order to get a job, you need to have clothes, you need to have hygiene products, you need to get yourself together. A ministry that I was checking into is created by former inmates. They got together because they understand what that transition is like. And when they got together, they said the number one need is housing. I was a little surprised because I thought, well, you need your ID, you need to get, all the paperwork. Just mentally going through the process of getting your paperwork. I mean, that's daunting for anybody. But when you're coming out and you have to deal with these systems that are just crazy, I thought that was the number one need. He said, no, it's housing. Because how are you going to get a job if you don't look halfway decent, if you don't smell halfway decent,
Or have an address?
And I was about to say that, and that's the final thing. I have an address, have a telephone number. The other thing is, think about this. Depending on how long you've been incarcerated, you just get out on the streets, technology has changed so dang much. I mean, I'm looking like, okay, how do you do an iPhone 11 or whatever we are up to now? Can you imagine if you've been in jail for the last 10 years and someone says, well, you just post that, well, you just text that, well, you just download that, and you're like, okay, all right. And the feeling, going back to dignity, the feeling of I am so unprepared for this world. I mean, if you've got through any kind of transition in your life, you understand that you're going from an uncomfort zone to a well, in a prison sense, uncomfortable to a more uncomfortable zone.
Right.
And people are so excited about getting out. That first 24 hours, that first 12 hours where they're ecstatic and they're like, I'm free. And then reality sets in. And it's like, you're free to what?
Or some that aren't excited, and so they do something really quickly so they can get put back in because it's more comfortable. Better the crazy I know than the crazy I don't.
Exactly.
And she talked about that a lot, how people reoffend because they just can't figure it out. It's too scary. So if there's going to be corrections, it needs to start from the inside of the prison.
Yeah. There are people who actually, a guy I was reading about said, I was thinking, where is a cop? If I can find a cop and punch him in his face, then that's assault, and I know for sure I'll get back in. And this was when he was on the street for 3 days. He had been released for 3 days, and he was like, I cannot hack this. Because there was nobody there for him.
You know, I'm always looking at the church, because that's just who I am. What?
No, go with it. Go.
What we doing? What we doing?
Here's the thing.
I know for certain. The Potter's House, TD Jakes has the Tory program, which is the Texas Offenders Reentry Initiative. Yes, and that program is growing by leaps
what is
and
it called?
bounds.
I'm sorry?
The Texas Offenders Reentry Initiative.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so he has this huge graduation that he participates in. One story in particular stood out to me. They had, their graduation, and then he brought up one young man, and he said, it was a young woman. He said, this young woman made a mistake. She made a mistake, and she needs a job. If you have a job, let her know. People flooded the altar throwing business cards at her. Imagine if we just took a little bit of that. If every church just took a little bit of that, and then they said, hey, you know what? I got a construction business. Let me give you a try, because yet by the grace of God go I. Okay, exactly. I know I'm a video camera away from having been arrested for something in my life.
And I was going to say,
at some point,
you nailed it. The call to action was, if you made a mistake, come to the altar. It could have been said, if you made a mistake and got caught,
and got caught,
because how many of us commit crimes?
And
don't get caught.
But
we're so judgmental. Even, I go back to this. I mean, it was an excellent exchange with this woman, and she says it is in the best interest of the general public to take notice of what is happening, because if they don't pay attention to this, the problem is going to repeat itself, and it's going to cost them money. It's so big. There's so many variables that hurts everybody.
Out of sight, out of mind. The truth of the matter is, unless it's in your backyard, we're not paying attention to it. I'm going to be very honest with you. When this topic came and said, okay, this is some of the things we need to discuss because it's necessary. To your point, Lori, it wasn't until I started, doing my own research, I said, oh my God, this is real. Why? Because I never had to deal with it. Right. That is why the church is not involved.
Exactly.
Shout out to Bishop Jakes.
Yeah.
But that is one of the reasons why, because it's not in our face.
And there are some churches that are
I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, even our church, we went, I'll be honest, we would go in and minister to the women at the prison.
Yeah.
And if I'm honest, we had an exceptional experience with the ladies. It was the staff that was getting in the way, to the point where we had to sit with the chaplain and say, hey, this is becoming a problem. We got this. The Lord got this. But there were some things where it was very unsettling, and we had to address it to the point, how we did it? And it was spiritual warfare, but we were being direct. When we would pray for those ladies, we would pray for those guards. And it wasn't like a convicting prayer, but it was a little bit.
Yeah.
It was a little bit, because it's wrong. We witnessed mistreatment of the women.
But to the guard's point, what you were saying about the training. So now I'm in a position where I haven't been properly trained.
Yes.
And so now I'm just mad because I got to deal with all these inmates and they're not trying to do right and all this stuff. But it's not all prisons. Did you know that there are like the top 10 luxurious prisons? Like people pay to go to these prisons. There's one in Sweden. There's one in Germany, and then I'm probably going to mess up the name, but it's like Orange Was or something like that.
Wait. So you're saying that the prisoner has a choice?
These are prisons for the rich.
There it is.
Yes, they're prisons for the rich. They can cook their own breakfast. There's like king size beds. If you look on social media outlets, you'll find a video. If you Google the top 10 luxurious prisons, these will pop up. But the one that's most interesting, the one that I'm messing up the name, Orange Was. What I like about this prison is you're allowed to bring your children into the prison up until the age of 3. So they have other children that they're able to play around with.
Wow.
Families can come in and actually stay with the prisoner until they're 3 years old. So again, you've got, it's, it's good and it's bad. You're building the relationship with the parent. However,
whenever you have a cost, so I'm assuming there's a cost to go to these prisons, right? So when you apply a cost to something, you are instantly creating a divide, right? We see that here in this country. If I can pay for this, I get better. I see when I get on the plane, there's zone 1, zone 2, first class, right? There's division everywhere as soon as you apply a cost. That's dangerous, and I pray that never enters these United States of America. But children, these inmates, incarcerated people having access to their children and families and cooking and having these warm and fuzzy experiences. My first thought is, well, why would prison be bad to that child? If it feels
they don't know any different.
resort-like, you know what I mean? Like, what is punishment like? But beyond that, here in this country, 1 in 28 children have a parent. 1 in 28 children have a parent or a loved one that's incarcerated.
Wow.
So when we say things like we're not affected by it or it's until it's in our backyard, it is in our backyard.
I'm interested to see what the numbers are in the inner city.
High.
Because you would think it's
Well,
much
it is.
higher.
It's
Yeah.
very high. So, when you, if you teach, that's a class. One person in your class has an incarcerated parent. And there's so many effects that happen to children. I wanted to read this. This was in Essence magazine. It says children with parents in jail or prison face similar hardships, including mental health. So this is the effects on children, mental health and health issues, entry into the foster care system. So there's a data set that says X amount of students, kids in foster care have a parent that's incarcerated, and major educational setbacks. It also says that parents who are unable to pay a court-mandated child support as a result of not earning income in prison. We talked about 22 cents for women, and I just found out that it's 44 cents for men per hour that they make, which is another show about pay disparity even with inmates. But if they're not able to pay these child support fees after release to avoid going back to jail, what do you think they do? They re-enter, right? And what's happening is that this is destroying a sacred bond between a parent and a child. And that's just one of so many effects that we have on children.
Yeah.
And our taxes are paying for this. We, in a sense, we can say all we want, but we're contributing to it. I always like to look at, we've been blessed to have this platform to talk. What's our purpose for even having the conversation? If nothing else that I got out of this is voting. Make sure you vote. Because if you don't vote, you have no right as to say who's going to be putting what laws into place. That's where it started. I often wondered why Dr. King was so adamant about being able to vote, because that's the core of it. If you can't affect politics, if you can't affect the vote, it's at the point now with mandatory sentencing, they've taken the power out of the judge's hands. It used to be that the judge could look at your situation. Oh, your baby couldn't eat. Okay, let me give you this. With mandatory sentencing, it's we've got the 3 strikes. We've got the all these different things that are mandatory, and they don't handle it case by case.
What trips me up is that everything has an authority, right? And so like in my world, if there's a disparity, my job is to sort of see where it is, where the gap is. Is it the language? Is it the person, the recruiter? Is it what is it? Who is the authority? Who is the person looking in and saying, okay, I'm seeing some trends in this area, or with this judge, or with this attorney, or with this prison, and looking at the data and saying, because numbers tell a story. Who is that person? There's a gentleman who's very involved in one of these large prisons that you've mentioned, that or a business that owns like 60% of the private prisons in the nation, and he was formerly incarcerated. He bought stock in the company so he can be invited to the shareholders meeting and ask difficult questions. And I applaud him because he's, in his own way, trying to hold them accountable, but is it enough? We need more people like him.
Agreed. I also think we need more people, getting back to what you said earlier, at this grassroots level who are reaching out, whether it's the inmates who are being released and they need reentry programs, whether it's the families that are affected, because if there is like a church program or even individually, you can, there are lots of programs. There's a program where you can write a prisoner, adopt a prisoner, write letters. That alone is treating that person with dignity and letting them know that they're not forgotten, they're not left behind bars.
If I may, I just want to shout out Janice Green. I know we're almost out of time, but Janice Green she's an exceptional woman. She's a friend. We went to high school together, and she's doing a lot of great work around families who are affected by a loved one who's being incarcerated. We've heard the expression, if one person goes to prison, we all go. And so she wrote a book called Loving Him Inside Out, and she gives great tips on how to cope, how to communicate with your children, how to maximize your time with your visits. And she also has a closed group that has over 2,000 women worldwide who are just coming together to be a support to each other.
Loving Him Inside Out.
Loving Him Inside Out. And
love
again,
that.
her name is Janice Green. You can find her on all social media, but she is a rock star in this space, helping families get through this difficult time.
Excellent.
There are so many resources and so many things that we ourselves, you there, can reach out. This is a situation and a topic where I really am happy that we got a chance to cover it, because I didn't know that much about it. And instead of thinking that these people are far away and they're out of sight, out of mind, remembering that they're people. Don't be desensitized when you hear on the news, because these are people, and just don't think, oh, those are just numbers. No, they're real people. If there's a program at your church that you can reach out and get involved in, if there's a program that you can look up online, write to people, just let them realize that they are people and that they're valued. And when they come out, that there is a second chance at life. We just appreciate having the opportunity to talk about all this. We want to hear from you, so make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can stay in touch, always listen to our programs. And that was our vantage point. What's yours?
What's your vantage point